Each day, the choice is yours. And see if you can hear this like it's speaking to you, not just like you're listening to something, but that it pertains to you. Each day, the choice is yours. You can choose to live knowingly as what you already always are, the infinite stillness, peace, and presence of being that is your true nature. Or you can choose to continue to misidentify I as the inherited erroneous belief in being a separate time-bound finite me personality composed of mind and matter, attempting to get better and avoid psychological suffering by acquiring more and more symbols and strategies of control, approval, security, and survival. I have to read that again. You can choose to continue to misidentify I. So remember, he's talking about a choice here, right? You can choose to be yourself. That's the first thing he said. You can choose to live knowingly as what you already always are. The infinite stillness, peace, and presence of being that is your true nature. And this is the practice of meditation. Experiencing what you already are. Or you can choose to continue to misidentify yourself, misidentify I as the inherited erroneous belief in being a separate time-bound, finite, quote-unquote me, personality composed of mind and matter, attempting to get better and avoid psychological suffering by acquiring more and more symbols and strategies of control, approval, security, and survival. That's the person. That's the personality. And so he's saying you can choose to be that, or you can choose to be what you already are. Right? Choice number one unfolds itself as natural, spontaneous expressions of freedom, flow, joy, love, compassion, creativity, and peace that are present regardless of the ever-changing circumstances of life. Choice number one, the choice to be yourself, unfolds itself as natural, spontaneous expressions of freedom, flow, joy, love, compassion, creativity, and peace that are present regardless of the ever-changing circumstances of life, regardless of the circumstances. Choice number two, sentences one to live within the, so choice number two is being the person, right? Choice number two, sentences one to live within the bonds and beliefs of an inherited, default, imaginary mental and emotional matrix where one's true nature is veiled, hidden, and what is called life is made up of a series of attempts at self-improvement. What is called life is made up of a series of attempts at self-improvement in order to overcome the inherent thoughts and feelings of separation, effort, struggle, loss, lack, fear, and the feeling that something is missing. That's the person. In this timeless moment of now, why not fully give up the illusions of becoming and someday? Right? In this timeless moment of now, why not give up the illusions of becoming and someday? Why not fully embrace and live from the ever-present stillness of being that is your true home? And then he goes on to saying, he looks forward to seeing people on Saturday and whatnot. But you could get up in the morning and read this, and it would be a worthwhile practice. Right. So when you first make contact with these practices and teachings, you don't know you don't know. Do you understand? You don't know yet that you don't know. You think you know, right? That's what not knowing that you don't know is, that you think you know, right? And anything that you don't know, you can't learn. Do you understand? Anything you don't know is outside of your reach. First, it has to be something that you just don't know. And if you don't know it, you can find out, right? But if you don't know, that's not on the field, right? And most of humanity doesn't know that they don't know that they don't know.
So we're a little further than everybody.
Yeah. Now, if you've been doing your homework, right, now you just don't know, right? So you can find out, right? But people walking in the hallway out there don't know that they don't know, so they look in here and say, what the hell are those people doing? Right? Well, you don't enter into that. You can't enter into that, right? Because it's already the case. That's already the case. That's already what you are. So you don't enter into anything, you remove yourself from something, right? You don't start being who you are, you stop being who you're not. Who you are is already the case, okay? So you're already there. You're already there. It's not a question of getting anywhere. It's like he says here, it's not a question of getting anywhere. If you are choosing, and it's not even a choice if you don't know that it's a choice, right? If you don't know, there's nothing to choose, right? But if you do have a choice, or there's a choice that you don't know you're taking, right? To continue to misidentify the I as the erroneous belief in being a separate, time-bound, finite me personality, and you're trying to get better to avoid psychological suffering by acquiring more and more symbols and strategies of control, approval, security, and survival. So that would be where your question would come from, right? Because the only way that question makes sense is if a person's asking it, right? If the person's not asking it, if who you are is asking it, the question doesn't make any sense anymore, right? Everybody's innocent. They're not, even Hitler, right? Everybody's innocent, because if you don't know who you are and you don't know what you're doing, how could you be held accountable? Even in a court of law, you know, George Gurdjieff, who was a famous teacher of consciousness, right? The way he worked with people, right? He would say, do you really want to wake up, right? If you say, yeah, he say, okay, then you have to make an absolute commitment to do the work no matter what, right? And this is true with Buddhism too, right? You really want to wake up, you have to make an absolute commitment to do what it will take for you to wake up. Okay, you're in, good. And then he would start insulting you, right? Because in order for you to see your personality, right, you have to attack it. If you attack it, it'll show up, right? Because it's insecure, right? It's unstable, right? It's inauthentic. It's inauthentic. When you're being a person, you're being inauthentic. What does the word inauthentic mean? It means you're not being real, right? Authenticity means real, right? And when you're being a person, you're being inauthentic. Why are you being inauthentic? Because the person you're being doesn't exist outside of the belief you have in it. That's inauthentic. And if it's inauthentic, it means you've got a full-time job now, right? Because you have to take something that's not real and doesn't exist, right? And demonstrate that it is real and does exist all day long. That's your job. And the way you do that job is you think. You think. What do you think? You think you exist. And then you think about the you that exists. And you think about what that you wants and what that you needs and what that you doesn't want, right? And that's your life. Your life is a thought process that's necessary to generate the existence of who you are, because who you think you are doesn't exist outside of who you think you are. So that's the thing, that's what you have to face, right, to come out of the dream. That's what you have to face to come out of that you don't know you don't know, right? That you don't know that you don't know, right? And then you can just get that you don't know, right? So that you don't know that you don't know is you don't know that you don't know who you are, right? That's the basic thing. You don't know that you don't know who you are, right? So if you can accept that, right, and there's your conversation that you can have, you can look at what the evidence says, and these are the things we talk about here, right? So you can see what's true, right? Right. So if you don't know who you don't know you are, and you're open to a conversation about that, and through that conversation you see clearly for yourself that you don't know who you are, now you move into simply not knowing. And now that you don't know, right, and you know what you don't know, you can begin the process, and then you become a seeker, right? Then you're trying to find out who you are, right? And that process of trying to find out who you are goes on until you're frustrated It goes on until you give up. It goes on until you realize that the you who's trying to find out who you are is who you are. Right? It's already there. You find out that the you who's trying to find out who you are is already who you are. Right? So if that can get through, right? If that can get through the what do you call that? Air defenses. You know, when bombers are coming to bomb, right? If that could get through your civil air defense, right, of the personality to kind of shoot that down, right? If it gets shot down, then you stay there until you get it, right? But if it doesn't get shot down and it gets through and makes contact with the reality of you, right? Then you have a revelation. Then something's revealed. Then you see who you are for the first time, maybe in your life, right? You can't get this conceptually. It has to be a direct perception. It has to be a direct seeing, right? They call people who are awake seers, right? So you see who you are, maybe for the first time. Now, having seen who you are, then the work really begins, because now you have to do the work necessary to keep catching yourself being who you're not. Upon seeing who you are, the work begins. That's not the end, it's the beginning. Enlightenment is the beginning. The lights go on, you see the way it is the beginning. And then from there, you have to consistently pay attention so you can notice when you're being what you're not, right? And when you notice what you're being, and when you notice that you're being what you're not, you're seeing that from what you are. And so that's why I say the only thing you need to do for that process to move, the only thing you need to do for that maturity to occur, the only thing you need to do to live the life of the reality of yourself, to live the life of the awareness, and that life is the life that can provide you with peace, presence of being, your true nature, stillness, happiness, right? Right? In order to do that, you have to be vigilant and pay attention consistently so you can watch the program running that has you be what you're not. And all you have to do is watch it running when you're not being yourself. That will cure it. That will fix it, right? It's like I say here, I've often said here before, you know, it's like the little thing that I say here about the guy who was tapping his tooth. And he said to the dentist, "Doc, I tapped my tooth. It hurts. What do you think?" He said, "Don't tap it," right? So it's the same thing. Stop spending time being what you're not. You don't want to suffer? Stop spending time being what you're not. Because being what you're not is the source of your suffering. Being what you're not is the source of your suffering. Trying to be a physical body is a burden. Trying to be a physical body is a burden, right? Because you have to watch that thing in the mirror, right? As it deteriorates, right? And falls apart. And no matter what you do, it's not going to change that, right? So that's a burden to be a body, right? Trying to be what you are as a personality is also a burden, right? And the reason it's a burden is because there ain't no personality. Not really. There's no evidence of being any personality, which means you have to generate it all the time. You have to generate it all the time. Where are you going to get how to be as a person? You have to generate being a person all the time, because there is no such thing, right? You didn't know that, right? And so you didn't know why you were so tired at the end of the day, right? Because on top of everything else you had to do, like the job you had to do and the relationships you had to, deal with, right? And the finances you had to deal. On top of all that, the biggest thing that you didn't even know you had to do was continue to pretend that you were something that you're not. And in addition to everything else you have to do, you have to keep pretending that you're something that you're not. And every time somebody does something that threatens the existence of that, you have to go into action, you have to run, you have to fight. Hell of a life, isn't it? No wonder people are taking drugs and drinking alcohol and freaking out and going nuts and so forth and killing themselves, right? Because they don't even recognize the source of the real burden. They don't. They don't recognize. You think the source of the real burden is you're in a shitty relationship, right? So you end the relationship, you get in another relationship, right? And it isn't long before that's a shitty relationship. What's going on, right? If you bring shit to a new relationship, that relationship will turn to shit. What's so hard about this? if you take a shitty personality and a shitty attitude, right, and you think that where you live is the problem, so you move to a beautiful place, right, out in California. Well, that's not a beautiful place anymore. I don't know, what's a beautiful place? Is there anything left? Montana? So you move to a different place, right? And then after a while, you notice that you're miserable there. Hawaii, yeah, because you, like most people, keep trying to do more, different, and better to fix what the problem is. But the problem with fixing the problem is you don't know what the problem is. So you keep doing more, different, and better, right? You change where you live to a different place. You change who you're related to a different person, right? Well, yeah, and that's why you need a community and a teacher, right? And you need to be able to make a solid commitment to something that you can trust, like the floor that you can stand on, you know it's there, right? Yeah, that's why you need that. Yeah, of course you have to face your fear. You have to let go. Yeah, you have to let go and face your fear. But I'll tell you something. If you let go of who you thought you were that you're not and face the fear that's there, you're in a hell of a lot better. You're in a lot better shape than you were. You're in a lot. I'd rather be afraid and face the unknown, right? To continue to try and be something that I'm not, that I will never succeed at. Never succeed. Right? And the cost of continuing to try and be what you're not is high. It's stressful, isn't it? Yeah, it's stressful. It's stressful, and it's going to result in your feeling anxiety and depression. It's going to result in your feeling frustration. It's going to result in your relationships not working very well. It's going to affect your physical health, right? It's going to affect your ability to function in the world because you're operating from a lot of mistaken ideas about everything. Yeah, so it's interesting. I started to work with a new client today, and in this business of being a psychotherapist and a psychologist, after a while, you don't hear anything new anymore. You know what I mean? There's only about 5 things wrong with humanity, right? So you keep hearing the same thing. I'm anxious, I'm depressed. I'm anxious, I'm depressed, right? I'm confused, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. My relationships aren't working, I'm confused, I'm anxious, and depressed. My job, my relationships aren't working, my body's failing, I'm confused, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. You hear the same stuff over and over again, right? And after a while, it becomes so clear and so obvious and so evident that what you're listening to is the suffering of a person. It's the suffering of being a person that you're listening to. The problem with that is that, like when I was talking to this person that was a new client today, and they were telling me the same things I just told you that I always hear, right? And at the end of the session, it's the first session, at the end of the session, they said, well, can you give me something that I can use right away? And what I said to them, I didn't say it to the person, right? But what came up for me is, I could tell you something. Stop being a person. It'll cure everything. Stop being a person. You don't have to come back next week. The only problem with that is it's easier said than done. You can't just stop being a person. In fact, you can't stop being a person, right? But you can stop thinking you are, right? But I couldn't say that to this person because they would think I was nuts. What the hell is he talking about? Stop being a person. So you got to slowly walk somebody into this water, right? You can't put them in the deep end. You put them in the deep end right away, they'll freak you out and run away, right? Because it won't make any sense, right? So you have to gradually hear this and gradually start to allow it, let it sink in, and gradually allow yourself to understand what this is all about. And if you gradually allow yourself to understand what this is all about, you'll understand this is about your life. This is about whether or not your life is going to be a waste of time. Really. This is about whether your life is going to be a waste of time. Right? Because unless you find out who you really are, and unless you experience the reality of yourself while this body's here, you won't have been here. You will not have been here. Your life will go on while you're paying attention to what you're afraid of. Your life will pass you while you're preoccupied with thinking about your life. Your life will go by while you're preoccupied with thinking about it.
What's that phrase from the Beatles? Life happens while you're making plans or something?
Yeah, sure. The Beatles had a lot of very powerful insights, and I'm sure part of that had to do with the fact that they went to India and they studied transcendental meditation and that type of thing. They came up with some, huh?
And drop down.
and dropped acid. Well, you know me, I can't help it. I can't help but being honest. It cost me a lot in my life, but I still do it. And I dropped acid, you know. I'm not saying you should drop acid, but I'm saying there's something available that people who do drop acid discover. You don't have to drop acid to discover it, right? But you need to do something to allow yourself to make contact with what the possibility is so that it touches you sufficiently enough for you to start to deal with it. Because it's going to take something for you to deal with it. You know, you're hypnotized in being a person. You're hypnotized in living the life of ignorance. You're hypnotized of living a life that is a lost life, like the Buddhists say when they talk about the majority of humanity, and they say, you know, that most of humanity is a hungry ghost, a hungry ghost. They're not real, that makes them a ghost, and they're never satisfied, that makes them a hungry ghost, right? So I saw something on YouTube today about, I think it was something, one of the talks Thich Nhat Hanh gave before he died, and it was called, you know, something like treating the hungry ghost, something like that. Because that's a common phrase in Buddhism, the hungry ghost. So you're either going to live your life as a hungry ghost, right? And your life is going to be about trying to be real when you're not, right? Your life is going to be about trying to be happy when that's not possible, right? Because you can't be happy being something that doesn't exist. It don't work like that. And the beauty of it is, the best part is, that in this particular adventure, in this particular endeavor, right, you're not going anywhere, you're not going to achieve anything, you're not becoming anything, you're learning that even doing anything isn't required, right? Because what you're learning to do is experience being, not doing. Right? And so this is actually the reason that this is complicated and difficult and hard, right, is because it's so easy you don't know how to do it. Why? It's so easy you don't know how to do it because what are we talking about? We're talking about being what you already are. There can't be anything more easy than that. It's like my saying to you, it's like you're telling me I want to really experience the truth. I really want to be free. I want to be happy. I want to be satisfied. I want to be content. I really want to get out of this situation I'm in and experience the reality of what I am and the reality of the truth. I want to do that, right? Now let's say that doing that would be equal to you sitting in the chair you're in right now, right? Let's say that doing that, to realize the possibility, would be equal to your sitting in the chair right now, right? Which means you're already there, right? Yeah, but what you can't help doing is try to do it anyway. What you can't help doing is while you're sitting in the chair, in other words, while you're being who you are, right, claim you're not. That's what you're doing, isn't it? While you're being who you are, claim that you're not that. Because every time that you operate in the world as if you're what you think you are, or every time you operate in the world as if you're being a role you play, or you're being your physical body, every time you were operating in the world like that, right, it can't produce a result. It can't produce any satisfaction. It can't produce happiness and well-being, because it's like you're saying that I want to experience those things, and those things would be equal to your sitting in the chair you're in right now, which means you are experiencing those things, right? But you keep lying about it. You keep denying it. You keep saying, well, yes, but, right? Or you say, I understand these things conceptually, but in my daily life, I get pulled out of it, right? I get pulled out of it all the time. I get pulled out of it when I'm doing my job. I get pulled out of it when I'm trying to raise my kids. I get pulled out of it when I look in the mirror and I freak out about how I look. So you have to get to the root of it. You know, they say in one of the Buddhist traditions that I've practiced in, they say you have to get to the root of suffering. You know, to the root of suffering. You have to get to the actual source of the suffering and stop trying to fix the symptoms. Depression and anxiety are symptoms. The source of that suffering has to do with your confusion about who you are. Yeah, and so these things have to be put to the test, right? If you come here and listen to this, you ought not to accept anything I'm saying to be true, but you ought to look for yourself and see if when you look for yourself, you see what I'm pointing to. And if you do, then that would be true, wouldn't it? Yeah, because it's not an interpretation. It's not some concept. No, it's a direct seeing of what's going on. And that's what you want to cultivate. You want to cultivate your ability to actually see what's going on versus what you think about it. Yeah, verifying the whole thing, because what's real should be able to be verified, right? What's real should be able, meaning what's real, there should be evidence for that, right? Yeah, there should be evidence for what's real. And what I've harped on here and what I've encouraged you to do is to go through the process of finding out for yourself what the truth is. What's the evidence say, right? What's the evidence say about what's the evidence say about what the voice in your head is? Look and see. Is it you? Yeah, what's the evidence say about who you are as a person?
Do you ever stop being pulled out of it? Like you get to a point where you just...
Of course.
Okay.
Of course, but in order to get there, you have to start somewhere, right? You have to start, in order to get there, you have to start with the recognition that you're hypnotized. You have to start with the recognition that your mind will keep playing the same programming, right? Your mind will, because there's no place else for it to go. It's a machine, it's a computer, it's a program, right? But once you see the reality of it, then you can begin to practice being awake. You can begin to practice seeing what's going on instead of being blind, seeing what's going on instead of dreaming about it, right? And once you see what's going on, you can stop being what you're not. You can start experiencing reality as it actually is. You'll know you're doing that because you'll be happy, and you won't know why. You'll just be happy, right? Because you finally touched you finally touched the truth, right? That's when happiness occurs, when you touch the truth. What's touching the truth? Touching the truth is experiencing the awareness that you are, that's always here, that's happy naturally. Why is it happy? It's happy because it's here. How many people are you going to meet in this world that are happy because they're here? Mostly they complain about it, right? Mostly they say, I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask to be born. Isn't it an ironic reality that somebody could complain about the most inconceivable, mysterious, precious gift that's possible? The most inconceivable, precious gift that's possible, meaning your existence, your awareness, right, is something that most people don't have any sense of appreciation for and complain about all the time. What worst case of neurosis could there be? What worst case of neurosis could there be, right?
Well, look at that recent suicide.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect example. How many times do we have to see these people that are beautiful, successful people jump off a building? Yeah, but she is just another one of that same case. And if you go back, there are hundreds. I mean, if you're just talking about celebrities, you can find plenty, right? But beyond celebrities, there are people killing themselves all over the place every day. Because they're trying to escape. They're trying to escape, right? And what they're trying to escape from is nothing other than a mistake that they made about who they are. That's all it is. And the reason that the question is good is because he's saying as a person. That's why when he gets done asking the question, I said, who's asking? If it's the person, you're not going anywhere. You're going in a circle if it's the person. That's what I meant when I said if the person practices meditation, it ain't meditation. It is, but it's not going to get you anywhere. Right? It's all it's going to do is stimulate the beginning of your interest in the process, right? But that has to, and then in the process, you have to come to see that the one that you were that started being interested in this is the problem. You see? That's why when you ask a question, you're cornering yourself. You're cornering yourself. All right, we got to go.